This exercise is to help you learn to use your single routing method efficiently. We're also going to teach you to troubleshoot in case you go to route with single and you're unable to attach between two pieces of duct. We have our PractiCAD exercise template open and we're going to zoom into this quadrant. It's in split screen currently. I used two viewports to split it, or you can type in viewports in your command line. Going to zoom into the same side on the left, and we're going to draw two fittings at two different elevations. So go up to your bin, click on rectangular duct, go to the fitting parameter box, type in 40 by 20, put bottom at 10 foot, and just place it on the drawing. I'm going to click once for placement, a second time for the rotation at 0, and now it's asking me to route in the command line. I'm going to hit P for piece. Make sure you've got just one fitting on the drawing. Don't route more. Then go back to your elevation box and put this one at 12 foot and just put it a little bit further away. Now currently these two fittings are not lined up. So they're not only, one is not only higher than the other, but they're also not lined up center line to center line. So they're offsetting in two different directions. So we're going to use fittings that allow us to offset in two different directions for the rest of this exercise. Before we go to route, we always got to make sure we have the following settings. First, make sure that your O snaps are on. You can type in F3 and it'll make sure that this button is depressed. It has to be lit. We must be able to have our O snaps on. Next, we must got to make sure that we're trying to attach an in connection to an out connection, or an out connection to an in. We shouldn't be able to go in to in or out to out. Obviously, we've done this correctly here. You can see that because the arrow is representing the out node. And if I hit escape and then click on this duct, you can see the square node is the in joint. So we're going out to in, so this should connect correctly. Next, we must change our offset to depth ratios. If you've already done this once during setup, you don't have to do it again. But just in case, we're going to go to the Auto Duct button in your PractiCAD ribbon and click on that. Go to Single Wall Rectangular. Click on Sizing. Make sure the maximal offset to width and depth ratio is set at least at 8 and 8. If this is the first time you're setting up PractiCAD, it's good to get these values set high now so the PractiCAD doesn't prevent us from attaching duct because the offsets are too great. There are tutorials on the definition and explanation of the offset width and offset depth ratios. Then click on offset on the left and do the same. Make sure the parameters for offset width and depth are 8 and 8 or higher. And if you are setting up your PractiCAD, you could also do this for round. You could click on sizing, maximal offset diameter 8, and offset, maximal offset diameter 8. Once you've got it, press OK, and then just hit escape. PractiCAD's asking you for a command, a interactive selection command. We go over that in other tutorials, but just hit escape. You've now changed the settings of your PractiCAD so that you should be able to route without any problems between points. So go to your fitting bin, grab a transition, finish length transition here, click. You should be able to click on the left duct once, type in I spacebar for single to switch your routing method to single, and then click on the other piece of duct. And you should have successfully attached the two. Then delete middle piece. And let's try the OG transition. We're going to come up here, go grab the finished length, double transition offset. Click. I'm going to click on one side. Now if you've got your fitting larger than the gap, see how this OG transition in length is larger than the gap we're trying to attach to? We must go to the fitting parameter box and lower the length so it's shorter, just like this. That way we can hold and attach between the two fittings. It won't work the other way. So we can attach it this way because this fitting breaks in two directions, or go up into your direction box and rotate this fitting 90 degrees by just changing your wheel. And then hold your end point. And it should snap. Then just click to attach. And you should have successfully attached your OG transition. Now if you go to use single method and it doesn't attach between the two ducts, always go through the following steps. Do you have object snaps on? Object snaps should always be on. Are you trying to attach in to in or out to out? If you've got the mechanism that prevents you from attaching out joints to out joints or in to in, which is recommended, you won't be able to attach duct between them. If you do, you'll break your duct line anyway. You'll break duct line integrity. There are tutorials on that. Make sure your width and depth offset ratios are set high enough. We've just set them high enough so your PractiCAD should be ready to go. But if you've just started your PractiCAD, maybe they've changed or they're at 0. So make sure your width to depth offset ratios are high enough for rectangular, and do it with a diameter for round. Is the fitting length longer than the gap I am trying to cover? This is important as well. We just went over this. Make sure that you shrink the length of the fitting you're trying to use single so that it's smaller than the gap. And am I using the right fitting? Does it need to be rotated? Some fittings don't break in both directions, so make sure you're using a fitting that can actually cover that offset. Some fittings only offset one way. By running through these troubleshooting steps, you should be able to make sure that you can always attach with single. That'll conclude this exercise.